You both deserve each other. The words left my lips in a whisper, barely audible over the thunder that shook the windows. Blood pooled beneath my hands on the piano keys, turning Chopin's Nocturne into something grotesque. The melody I'd composed for our anniversary, the one Minjun never showed up to hear, now played in fractured notes as my vision darkened. I could see them through the doorway. My husband, my brother, their clothes disheveled, guilt painted across faces that had forgotten how to look at me months ago. Jaemin, please. Minjun's voice cracked, but he didn't move toward me. He never did anymore. Eunwoo's hand was still on Minjun's shoulder. Possessive. Triumphant. My baby brother, who I'd sacrificed everything to put through music school, wore my husband's scent like a trophy. The lightning flashed once more. Then darkness swallowed me whole. You're late. I didn't look up from the mixing board as CO Minjun entered his own studio. 5 years had carved lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but his posture still radiated the same cold authority that once made my heart race. Now it just made my pulse steady with purpose. I own this building, he said, voice flat. I can't be late to my own space. Yet here I am, already analyzing the tracks you should have reviewed yesterday. I adjusted the levels on his new artist's demo, letting the silence stretch between us. Adana mentioned you've been distracted. His footsteps stopped behind my chair. I could feel his gaze on the back of my neck, that same intense study that used to make Jaemin blush and stammer. But I wasn't Jaemin anymore. I was Yoon Ha-rin, the producer who'd turned 3 failed artists into chart toppers in 18 months. The man who'd received Minjun's personal job offer without ever submitting an application. Fate had strange ways of granting second chances. You have excellent instincts, Minjun said carefully. It's almost like you can read my mind. I smiled at the monitor's reflection. Maybe I just understand your taste better than you think. I pulled up a classical piece on the system, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. You still prefer this for your late-night sessions, don't you? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. How did you? He moved closer, and I caught his reflection fully now. His face had gone pale, eyes searching mine through the glass. I never told anyone that. It's in your playlist history. I gestured at the screen, though we both knew I hadn't looked at any data. Basic producer research. Before I tell you what happened, subscribe to Starry-Eyed Lovers, and tell me where you're watching from. Minjun's hand trembled as he reached past me to pause the track. His cologne, still the same expensive brand, made my stomach twist with memories of lazy Sunday mornings and broken promises. When Jaemin died, he'd been wearing this same scent while tangled in sheets with my brother. Change it to something else, he said quietly. I don't listen to Chopin anymore. Why not? I kept my voice professionally curious. It's objectively beautiful. Because someone I loved used to play it. The words came out raw, unguarded. And I destroyed him. The confession hung in the air like smoke. This was new. The Minjun I'd known never admitted fault, never showed weakness. Grief had remodeled him into something almost human. Almost forgivable. Almost. Then maybe, I said, standing to face him fully for the first time. You should stop running from beautiful things just because you ruined them once. Our eyes met. His were dark, haunted, searching my face for something he couldn't name. Up close, I could see he hadn't been sleeping well. The same insomnia that plagued him after his mother died, the same exhaustion Jaemin used to soothe with gentle piano melodies at 3 a.m. Who are you really? Minjun whispered. I smiled. Cold. Controlled. Everything Jaemin had never been. I'm the producer who's going to save your failing label. The question is whether you're ready to listen. The label's executive team sat around the table like vultures dressed in designer suits. Adana, my assistant, handed out the quarterly reports with practiced efficiency. Her calm presence the only thing keeping me grounded some days. She'd been the first person to show me kindness in this new life, never asking questions about the scars I couldn't explain. Revenue down 32%, announced Kim Director, Minjun's CFO. We need a miracle or we start cutting artists. Or, I said, connecting my tablet to the presentation screen, you sign the one artist who can change everything. The photo appeared. Han Eun-woo, my brother, smiling that same charming smile that had seduced my husband. His new independent single had gone viral last month. A ballad about forbidden love that made my blood boil every time I heard it. Minjun's jaw clenched. Absolutely not. He's got 3 million followers and trending in 7 countries, I continued smoothly. Personal feelings aside, he's the logical choice. Personal feelings? Minjun stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. You don't know anything about my personal feelings regarding Han Eun-woo. Then educate me. I met his glare with practiced indifference. Why would you refuse to sign the most profitable artist in Korea right now? The room went silent. Everyone knew the rumors, the dead husband, the brother, the scandal that Minjun's lawyers had buried under NDAs and blood money. But no one spoke about it. Not where Minjun could hear. Meeting adjourned, he said through gritted teeth. Hurry in my office. Now. Adana caught my eye as I gathered my materials, her expression worried. She'd warned me about pushing too hard too fast. But revenge wasn't a patient game, and I'd already waited 5 years. He didn't sit. Just paced behind his desk like a caged animal, all that controlled authority fracturing at the edges. You've been here 2 weeks, he said. 2 weeks, and you're already trying to resurrect my worst nightmare. I'm trying to save your company. I set my tablet down with deliberate calm. Whatever history you have with Han Eun-woo, he killed my husband. The words hit the air like a gunshot. Minjun's back was to me, shoulders rigid, hands braced against the window overlooking Seoul's skyline. The setting sun painted him in shades of gold and shadow, beautiful and broken in equal measure. Not literally, he continued, voice hollow. But Eun-woo seduced me, made me betray the gentlest person I'd ever known. And when Jaemin found out, he pressed his forehead against the glass. The guilt destroyed him. He walked into that storm, took those pills, and I never got to tell him I was sorry. My hands curled into fists behind my back. So that was the story he'd told himself. Suicide. An accident of heartbreak. Not murder. Not the truth of what really happened that night. Then honor his memory, I heard myself say, by building something beautiful instead of hiding from success because it wears your trauma's face. Minjun turned slowly. His eyes were red-rimmed, vulnerable in a way that made my chest ache with phantom pain. Why do you care so much? He asked. Why does any of this matter to you? I should have deflected. Should have maintained professional distance. But standing there in the dying light, watching grief carve valleys into the face I'd once loved more than breathing, something shifted. I walked to his piano, a vintage Steinway he kept in the corner but never played, and pressed a single key. Middle C, pure and clear. Then I played the opening bars of the melody. The one I'd composed 5 years ago. The one only 3 people in the world had ever heard. The one Jaemin died playing. Minjun's sharp inhale told me everything. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, grabbed my wrist with desperate strength. How do you know that song? His voice cracked. Who taught you that? I looked up at him, let him see something real flicker across my face before I locked it away. Maybe, I whispered. Some melodies refuse to die just because their composer did. His grip loosened. His hand slid down to my wrist, thumb brushing across the fabric of my sleeve, and I knew. He felt the edge of the tattoo hidden there. The constellation Jaemin had inked at 21. The same pattern that should have been cremated with his body. Who are you? Minjun breathed. The door burst open. Adana, apologetic but urgent. Sir, Han Eun-woo is in the lobby. He's demanding to see you. Security can't. Send him up, I said before Minjun could respond. Adana's eyes widened. Minjun stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Harin, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stepped back, adjusted my collar, and smiled. It's time you both face the past. Don't you think? The elevator chimed in the distance. Footsteps approached, confident, entitled, achingly familiar. And when Han Eun-woo walked through that door, his eyes locked on mine with zero recognition, I felt the first genuine smile I'd worn in 5 years curve across my lips. Hello, I said pleasantly. I mean Harin. I believe we have a lot to discuss about your future. Eun-woo's gaze flickered between me and Minjun, predatory instinct sensing blood in the water. Minjun, he purred, ignoring me entirely. It's been too long. We should catch up. Privately. Minjun's face had gone carefully blank. But his hand, still close to where mine had been on the piano, trembled. Actually, I interjected smoothly, I think the 3 of us should get very well acquainted. After all, I met Eun-woo's eyes with something that made him pause. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. The storm outside began to rain. Just like it had 5 years ago. Just like it would again when I was finished. You haven't changed at all, Eun-woo. Minjun's voice carried none of its usual authority. He stood behind his desk like it could shield him from the past, walking through his door in expensive Italian leather. Eun-woo's smile was knife-sharp. You say that like it's a bad thing. He draped himself across the leather sofa with practiced ease, eyes never leaving Minjun's face. I've missed you. Missed this. His gesture encompassed the office, the view, the power. Missed us. There is no us. Minjun's knuckles went white against the desk edge. There hasn't been for 5 years. Guilt is such a tiresome emotion, don't you think? Unwoo examined his nails, manicured perfect, just like everything else about him. Jamin made his choice. We didn't force those pills down his throat. The temperature dropped. Minjun looked ready to lunge across the desk, years of careful control evaporating in seconds. I watched, cataloging every micro-expression, every tell. This was the fury Jamin never got to see, the protection that came 5 years too late. Gentlemen, I stepped between them smoothly, positioning myself in Unwoo's line of sight. Let's keep this professional. Unwoo, you're here about representation. Minjun, you need artists who can actually sell. I suggest we focus on business. Unwoo's attention finally shifted to me. Really looked at me for the first time. His eyes, so like mine used to be, before death taught me to weaponize every glance, narrowed slightly. And you are the person who decides whether you get signed or escorted out by security. I sat in the chair opposite him, crossing my legs with deliberate casualness. Your viral single was impressive. Technically proficient, emotionally manipulative in all the right ways. You have talent. I know. No false modesty. Unwoo had never possessed that particular skill. That's why I'm here. Minjun's label needs me more than I need him. Then why come at all? I tilted my head, studying him the way a scientist studies a specimen. Pride? Money? Or maybe. I let my gaze drift to Minjun, then back. Unfinished business. Something flickered in Unwoo's expression. Hunger. The same look he'd worn when he'd first decided to take what belonged to his brother. I like you, Unwoo said. You're direct. Not like these corporate cowards who dance around the truth. He leaned forward, invading my space with the confidence of someone who'd never been refused. What's your story, Harin? You're too sharp to be just another producer. I'm exactly what I appear to be. I held his gaze, let him see nothing but polished professionalism. Someone who recognizes talent and knows how to monetize it. Minjun, you should hire him permanently. Unwoo's smile turned predatory. I have a feeling Harin and I are going to work very well together. Minjun had gone very still. His eyes tracked between us with something that looked dangerously close to panic. The contract, he said abruptly. Standard terms. 70-30 split, promotional obligations, morality clause. No morality clause. Unwoo's voice hardened. We both know my morality is negotiable. That's never bothered you before. The air crackled with unspoken history. I watched Minjun's jaw work, watched him swallow whatever response wanted to claw its way out. Fine. The word came out strangled. Harin will handle the details. I have other meetings. He left his own office. Actually fled, shoulders rigid, not looking back. Unwoo laughed, bright, cruel, satisfied. Still so easy to break. You'd think 5 years would have given him a spine. Or maybe, I said quietly, 5 years taught him what really matters. Guilt. Unwoo scoffed. Please. Minjun chose me that night. He made his decision long before Jamin found us. My brother was just too pathetic to accept it. My hands remained steady in my lap. Jamin would have trembled, would have cried, would have begged his baby brother to explain how love became this casual cruelty. But I wasn't Jamin anymore. Tell me about him, I said. Your brother. What was he like? Unwoo blinked, caught off guard. Why? Professional curiosity. You're singing ballads about lost love and forbidden desire. I assume there's real emotion beneath the performance. I pulled out my tablet, started drafting contract terms. Understanding your inspiration helps me market you effectively. A pause. Then, Jamin was weak. Talented, sure, could make a piano weep. But weak where it mattered. Unwoo's voice carried no grief, no remorse. He had everything handed to him. The scholarship, the early debut, the rich husband. And he still couldn't hold on to any of it. Because you took it. Because he didn't fight for it. Unwoo stood, paced to the window where Minjun had stood minutes before. I loved my brother. But love doesn't mean letting someone waste potential just because they saw it first. The casual brutality was almost beautiful in its honesty. This was the Unwoo that Jamin had made excuses for, had sacrificed for, had loved despite everything. The brother who'd smiled at family dinners while plotting to destroy everything Jamin held sacred. You don't feel guilty at all, I observed. Not a question. Should I? He turned, backlit by Seoul's skyline, gorgeous and monstrous. Minjun wanted me. I wanted him. Jamin was already half gone before we even touched. Depression, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, he was drowning long before that night. That's a convenient narrative. It's the truth. Unwoo moved closer, studying me with new interest. You know, you remind me of him sometimes. The way you watch people, like you're cataloging their weaknesses. My pulse spiked. Your brother? No. Min-jun. He smiled. You look at him the way he used to look at Jae-min. Like you're trying to solve a puzzle you're not sure you want the answer to. Would you forgive someone who mistook your pain for love? Comment below. I stood, gathering my materials. The contract will be ready by tomorrow. Standard terms minus the morality clause. But Eun-woo. I met his eyes directly. If you're planning to use this label as leverage to rekindle whatever you had with Min-jun, you should know he's not the same man you remember. Neither am I. He stepped into my space, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Different from Min-jun's, sharper, more aggressive. But some things don't change. Min-jun and I have unfinished business. And I always finish what I start. So do I. I smiled. Cold. Final. That's why we're going to work so well together. The label had emptied hours ago. Only the overnight security and obsessive producers remained, and I'd cultivated a reputation as the latter. It gave me access. Freedom. Time to explore spaces where Jaemin's ghost still lingered. Min-jun's private studio occupied the top floor. The room where he'd recorded Jaemin's only album before the marriage fell apart. I'd watched the security codes over his shoulder during our first week, committed them to muscle memory. The door opened silently. The studio was dark except for the mixing board's LED glow. And Min-jun sat at the piano in the corner, hands resting on keys he wouldn't press. You're here late, I said softly. He didn't startle. So are you. I work late. You're hiding. I closed the door behind me, stayed near the entrance. Giving him space. From Eun-woo? Or from whatever I made you feel earlier? Both. His laugh was bitter. You played his song, Harin. The one Jaemin composed for our anniversary. The one I never heard him perform because I was too busy fucking his brother. The raw honesty cut through the darkness like a blade. How did you know it? Min-jun turned finally, face half-shadowed. How could you possibly know that melody? I'd prepared dozens of explanations. Plausible stories about session musicians, leaked recordings, musical coincidence. But standing there in the dark with Min-jun's grief laid bare, the lies felt heavier than the truth. Maybe the universe has a sense of irony, I said instead. Or maybe some music is too beautiful to stay buried. Everything about Jaemin stayed buried. Min-jun's voice cracked. I made sure of it. Paid off the police, silenced the media, burned every recording he'd ever made because I couldn't stand hearing his voice knowing what I'd done. Guilt doesn't bring people back. Neither does forgetting them. He stood, moved toward me slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. But you make me remember. Everything about you makes me remember him. The way you stand, the way you hear music, the way you... He stopped an arm's length away. The way you look at me like you can see every terrible thing I've ever done. Can everyone? No. He reached out, hesitated, then let his hand fall. Everyone else sees the CEO. The success story. The man who survived tragedy and rebuilt his empire. You see the killer. You didn't kill anyone. I killed his will to live. Min-jun's eyes were glass bright. That's close enough. The space between us hummed with tension, grief and attraction, and something more dangerous than either. I should have stepped back. Should have maintained the careful distance that kept my revenge clean and simple. Instead, I closed the gap. Play it, I said quietly. The song. Play it the way he would have wanted you to hear it. I can't. You can. I moved to the piano, sat on the bench, patted the space beside me. I'll help you remember. Min-jun approached like a man walking toward his own execution. Saturday. Our shoulders nearly touched, our hands parallel on the keys. I don't remember how it starts, he whispered. I lifted my right hand, played the opening progression. Slow. Aching. Every note a small death. Min-jun's left hand joined mine, finding the bass line by instinct. The muscle memory of love overriding the paralysis of guilt. We played together in the dark studio, crafting the melody Jaemin had composed for a man who never arrived to hear it. And somewhere in the music, our hands began to move as one. Min-jun anticipating my choices, me following his rhythm. The piece becoming something larger than either of us alone could create. When the final note faded, neither of us moved. He would have forgiven you, I said. The lie tasted like ash. Eventually. I don't deserve forgiveness. Min-jun's voice was raw. I don't deserve anything except this guilt. Then why keep living? The question hung between us. Min-jun turned his head, and suddenly his face was inches from mine. Close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough to feel his breath ghost across my lips. Because someone has to remember him, he said. Someone has to carry what he was, even if I'm the last person who should. His gaze dropped to my mouth, lingered, returned to my eyes with something that made my heart stutter in my chest. Harin, he breathed. Why do you feel so familiar? I should have pulled away. Should have laughed it off. Should have rebuilt the professional walls that kept my identity safe. Instead, I lifted my hand to his face. Let my fingers trace the line of his jaw the way Jaemin used to do on the rare nights when Minjun came home early enough to be touched. Minjun's eyes fluttered closed. A small sound escaped him, half relief, half agony. Don't. The word was barely audible. Please don't be kind to me. I can't. I don't know how to. Breathe, I whispered. Just breathe. His hand came up to cover mine. Pressed my palm against his cheek like he was trying to absorb warmth from my skin. I dream about him, Minjun confessed. Every night. Sometimes he's angry, screaming at me the way he never did when he was alive. Sometimes he just watches me with those sad eyes, waiting for an apology I can't figure out how to say. And sometimes his voice broke. Sometimes he touches me like this, and I wake up hating myself for wanting even dream Jaemin when I destroyed the real one. Tears tracked down my cheeks. Silent. Traitorous. 5 years of carefully constructed armor cracking under the weight of his grief meeting mine. He loved you, I said. Truth and lie tangled together. That kind of love doesn't just stop because someone makes a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Minjun opened his eyes, and they were devastated. It was a choice. Multiple choices. Weeks of choosing Unwoo over my husband because he made me feel alive in ways Jaemin couldn't anymore. And by the time I realized what I was throwing away, it was too late. He was already gone. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, catching the tears there. Why are you crying? He asked softly. You didn't even know him. Maybe I'm crying for you. Don't. He pulled back slightly, but didn't let go of my hand. I don't deserve anyone's tears. Especially not yours. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, security making rounds. Reality crashed back. I stood, putting necessary distance between us. It's late. We should both go home. Minjun remained at the piano, looking smaller somehow. Younger. Like the man Jaemin had fallen in love with before ambition and boredom turned him cruel. Harin. He caught my wrist as I moved toward the door. His fingers landed exactly on the hidden tattoo, and I felt him freeze. Your wrist. There's something. I pulled free gently. Good night, Minjun. Wait. He stood, followed me to the door. Tomorrow. Dinner. Not business, just... He struggled for words. I want to know you. Really know you. Whatever this connection is between us, I need to understand it. Why? Because you're the first person in 5 years who's made me feel something other than guilt. His honesty was brutal, beautiful. And I'm terrified that means I'm about to destroy someone else I care about. The words should have satisfied me. Should have confirmed that the revenge was working, that Minjun was falling exactly the way I'd planned. Instead, they made my chest ache with something too complicated to name. Dinner, I agreed. But Minjun, I met his eyes one last time. Some people can't be saved from themselves. Remember that. I left him standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the studio's dim light, looking like every portrait of loneliness ever painted. In the elevator, I checked my phone. A message from Adana. Asterisk Unwoo requested a private meeting tomorrow. Just you. Should I be worried? Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk no. Everything is going exactly as planned. Asterisk. The lie was getting easier to tell. You're playing a dangerous game, Harin. Dr. Park set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. We sat in his private office, all warm leather and psychological safety, while rain streaked the windows behind him. He'd been Jaemin's therapist before the end, one of the few people who'd seen the fractures spreading beneath the surface. And now he was watching me with the same clinical concern. I'm doing my job, I said evenly. Producing music. Managing talent. Nothing dangerous about that. You're producing Minjun's emotional resurrection while simultaneously courting his greatest trauma. Dr. Park leaned forward, hands clasped. Unwoo texted me last night. Said he'd met someone fascinating at the label. Someone who reminded him of his late brother. My pulse spiked, but my expression stayed neutral. I'm flattered. You're playing with fire. His eyes, sharp, knowing, pin me in place. Whatever you think you're doing, whatever closure you believe you're seeking, revenge won't resurrect what you lost. I'm not trying to resurrect anything. The words came out harder than intended. I'm making them see, making them feel, making them understand what they destroyed. And then what? Dr. Park's voice softened. After they understand, after they suffer appropriately by your measurement, then what? Does Jaemin come back? Does the pain stop? I stood, moved to the window. The city below pulsed with life that kept moving whether we healed or not. You told me once, I said quietly, that Jamin's biggest weakness was loving people more than he loved himself. That he'd set himself on fire to keep others warm. I remember. I'm not making that mistake again. I turned to face him. This time, I'm the one holding the match. Dr. Park studied me for a long moment. Then sighed, pulling out a prescription pad. If you won't stop, at least promise me you'll be careful. The human heart isn't designed to sustain this level of calculated emotion. He scribbled something, handed it over. And if the nightmares get worse, take these. They'll help you sleep without dreaming. I pocketed the prescription without looking at it. The nightmares are the only time I still feel like myself. That's what worries me. My phone buzzed. Min-jun, * dinner at 7. My place. I'll cook *. The intimacy of the offer made my stomach twist. Dinner at a restaurant would have been strategic, public, safe. His apartment was something else entirely. Dr. Park watched me read the message. You're going. Of course I'm going. Then remember, his voice carried weight. The person you're hurting most in all of this might be yourself. Rain drummed against glass as I left his office, the prescription burning a hole in my pocket like a white flag I'd never wave. Adana waited in the car downstairs, her practical efficiency a grounding force in the chaos I was orchestrating. Eun-woo's meeting is in an hour, she said as I slid into the passenger seat. He requested the penthouse lounge. Very deliberately not the office. He's establishing dominance. I buckled in. Let him think it's working. Harin. She didn't start the car. I've worked with you for 3 years. I've seen you destroy careers with a smile and rebuild artists from nothing. But this, she turned to face me fully. This is different. Personal. And I'm worried you're going to get caught in your own trap. I appreciate the concern. I'm not concerned. I'm certain. Her bluntness was one of the reasons I'd hired her. You're falling for Min-jun again. I can see it in the way you watch him when you think no one's looking. The way your hands shake after you leave his office. That's not. Don't lie to me. Her voice carried no judgment, only truth. I don't know what history you actually have with these men. I don't need to know. But I do know that revenge stops being clean the moment you start caring whether your target suffers or heals. The words settled between us like sediment in water. Drive, I said quietly. We're going to be late. She started the engine without another word, but her point had already landed. The penthouse lounge occupied the label building's top floor. All glass walls and expensive minimalism. Eun-woo had claimed the corner booth, backlit by Seoul's afternoon skyline, positioned like a king granting audience. He smiled as I approached. Predatory. Pleased. Harin. Punctual and beautiful. I'm starting to understand why Min-jun keeps you so close. He keeps me close because I make him money. I sat across from him, maintaining careful distance. What did you want to discuss that couldn't wait for office hours? You. Eun-woo poured wine without asking if I wanted any. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. About Jamin. About weakness and strength and what it means to take what you want. Philosophical for a pop singer. I'm more than my image. He slid a glass toward me. Just like you're more than a producer. The question is, what are you really? I lifted the glass but didn't drink. What do you think I am? Someone with an agenda. He leaned back, assessing. Someone who knows exactly how to manipulate Min-jun's guilt while keeping him desperate for approval. It's masterful, really. Almost like you studied him specifically. I study everyone I work with. But you touch him differently. Eun-woo's eyes glittered. I saw you in the office. The way you invaded his space without hesitation. The way he let you. Min-jun doesn't let anyone close anymore. Not since Jamin. Maybe he's healing. Or maybe you're exploiting his wounds the same way I did. Eun-woo's smile widened. Which means we're more alike than different. We both see vulnerability and know exactly how to weaponize it. The comparison made my skin crawl. But he wasn't entirely wrong. What do you want, Eun-woo? An alliance. He leaned forward. You want something from Min-jun. I can see it in every calculated move you make. I want him back in my bed, paying for my lifestyle, giving me the platform I deserve. We could help each other. By destroying him together? By giving him what he wants while taking what we need. Eun-woo's voice dropped, intimate. Min-jun wants to suffer. It's the only way he knows how to process guilt. We can facilitate that suffering while building our own empires on his emotional real estate. The casual cruelty was breathtaking. This was the man who'd held Jamin as a child, who'd learned piano sitting beside him, who'd promised to always protect his older brother. And if I refuse? Then I'll tell Min-jun you've been asking very specific questions about Jaemin. About his death. About details that weren't public record. Eunwoo's threat was velvet-wrapped. I'll make him wonder why his new favorite producer is so obsessed with his dead husband. You have no proof of anything. I have instinct. And Min-jun is paranoid enough these days that instinct might be enough. He finished his wine. So, alliance or exposure? Choose wisely. I set down my untouched glass. Stood. Looked down at him with something that made his confident smile finally flicker. I choose option 3, I said quietly. I continue my work. You continue yours. And we see who breaks Min-jun first. The brother who betrayed him, or the ghost who won't let him forget. I'm not afraid of you, Eunwoo. I leaned down until we were eye level. Because unlike Jaemin, I know exactly what you are. And unlike Min-jun, I won't be seduced by your pretty face and empty promises. His jaw clenched. You'll regret this. Probably. I straightened. But at least my regrets will be my own. I left him in the penthouse, his kingdom of glass and lies, and took the stairs down instead of the elevator. Needed the physical exertion to burn off the adrenaline of confronting my brother's worst self without breaking character. Adana intercepted me on the 10th floor landing. How bad? He offered an alliance. I declined. He'll retaliate. I kept descending. But not today. Eunwoo likes to plan his cruelties. And Min-jun's dinner tonight? Still happening. I checked my watch. I have 4 hours to decide whether I'm the hero or villain of this story. Harin. She caught my arm, stopping me mid-step. What if you're both? The question followed me home. Through a shower that couldn't quite wash away Dr. Park's warnings or Eunwoo's threats. Through the careful selection of clothing that balanced professional and approachable. Through the cab ride to Min-jun's building, where the doorman recognized me from Jaemin's time and didn't quite hide his confusion. Min-jun's apartment hadn't changed. Same minimalist aesthetic, same city views, same piano in the corner that used to hold photographs of us before grief made him clear every surface of memories. He answered the door in jeans and a sweater, casual in a way that made him look younger, less armored. His hair was slightly damp, recently showered, and the domesticity of it hit harder than any corporate power play. You came, he said, relief evident. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would. He stepped aside, let me enter. After everything I told you last night, I thought maybe you'd realize I'm too damaged for friendship. Everyone's damaged. I surveyed the space, cataloging what had changed and what remained frozen in time. The question is whether the damage makes you more interesting or just more difficult. Min-jun laughed, small, surprised. And your verdict? Still deliberating. I moved to the kitchen where he'd been preparing dinner. Simple pasta, fresh vegetables, the kind of meal Jaemin used to make on quiet Sundays. You cook now. That's new. I had to learn. He joined me, opening wine with practiced ease. After Jaemin, I couldn't stand having staff in the apartment. Too many people, too many questions, too much performance. So I taught myself basic survival. Cooking isn't survival. It is when eating becomes an act of will. He poured 2 glasses, handed me one. Some nights, making dinner was the only thing that convinced me I deserved to stay alive. The raw honesty kept catching me off guard. This version of Min-jun, stripped of corporate armor, vulnerable in his own space, was dangerously close to the man Jaemin had married. Have you ever loved again after loss? Share your story in the comments. Why did you invite me here? I asked. Really? Min-jun leaned against the counter, wine glass cradled in both hands. Because you're the first person who doesn't treat me like I'm made of glass. Who challenges me instead of coddling me. Who looks at my guilt and says, okay, and what are you going to do about it? Maybe I'm just cruel. No. He shook his head. Cruelty would be easier. You're something more complicated. You push me toward healing while simultaneously making me face everything I've tried to bury. His eyes found mine. It's exhausting and necessary and terrifying. Then why keep me around? Because I'm tired of being afraid. He set down his glass, moved closer. And because when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I could learn to forgive myself. Not forget, not excuse, but forgive. The space between us compressed. Min-jun reached out slowly, giving me time to refuse, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered at my temple, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Can I ask you something? His voice had gone soft. And will you tell me the truth? Depends on the question. Have we met before? His hand slid down to cup my jaw. Before the label, before Harin, before any of this. Because sometimes when you look at me, I feel like I'm remembering something I never actually experienced. My heart hammered against my ribs. This close, I could see the gold flecks in his eyes that used to mesmerize Jaemin during early morning conversations in bed. Could smell the soap he still used, the same brand from 5 years ago. Could feel the warmth of his palm against my skin, familiar and foreign all at once. No, I whispered. The lie tasted like poison. We've never met before. Then why does touching you feel like coming home? He leaned in slowly, giving me every opportunity to step back. His breath ghosted across my lips, and for one suspended moment, the entire revenge plan hung in the balance. I could let him kiss me, could let him fall deeper, make the eventual revelation more devastating. It would be strategic, effective, exactly what the plan demanded. But when his lips were a breath away from mine, I turned my head slightly. Let his kiss land on my cheek instead, soft and aching with restrained want. Minjun. His name came out ragged. Don't. He pulled back immediately, hands dropping. I'm sorry. I misread. You didn't misread anything. I forced myself to meet his eyes. But we can't. Not like this. Not when you're still grieving, and I'm still. I struggled for words that weren't lies. Still figuring out who I am in your world. Who you are doesn't matter. His voice carried conviction. What matters is that you're here. That you see me, really see me, and haven't run away yet. Maybe I should. Probably. A sad smile. But please don't. The timer on the stove interrupted the moment. Minjun moved to drain pasta, and the domestic rhythm gave us both space to breathe. We ate on the balcony despite the evening chill, city lights spreading below us like fallen stars. The conversation drifted to safer topics, music, art, childhood memories that didn't involve dead husbands or living betrayals. Jaemin loved this view, Minjun said eventually, inevitably. Used to sit out here for hours, composing in his head. Said the city's rhythm was its own kind of music. Do you still hear it? Sometimes. He set down his fork. Usually at night, when I can't sleep and the guilt gets loud. I'll sit here and try to hear what he heard. Try to understand what I was too busy to notice when he was alive. And do you? Understand. I understand that I was selfish, restless, bored with contentment and hungry for chaos. He turned to face me fully. Unwoo was chaos. New and exciting and forbidden in all the ways that made me feel alive. And I convinced myself that what Jaemin didn't know couldn't hurt him. But he did know. Yeah, the word carried years of regret. He knew, probably before I admitted it to myself. He'd watch me come home late, smell Unwoo's cologne, and just smile. Like he'd already accepted that he'd lost. Like he was too tired to fight for something that should have been his without question. Maybe he thought love shouldn't require fighting. Maybe. Minjun's eyes were distant. Or maybe he knew that fighting would just make me resent him more. That the gentleness I'd fallen in love with had become the very thing pushing me away. The tragedy of it settled between us. How love could curdle into contempt. How kindness could be mistaken for weakness. How the same qualities that drew people together could slowly drive them apart. I'm not him, I said quietly. Whatever you're looking for in me, whatever echo you're chasing, I'm not Jaemin. I know, but his eyes told a different story. You're stronger, sharper, less willing to accept cruelty disguised as circumstance. He reached across the table, fingers stopping just short of mine. But sometimes, in certain lights, you remind me of what I lost. And I can't tell if that's a blessing or another punishment. Maybe it's both. His fingers closed the remaining distance, covering mine. The touch was electric, familiar and new, comforting and terrifying. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained the boundary I'd just established. Instead, I turned my hand over, let our palms press together, fingers interlacing. Harin. My name on his lips sounded like prayer and confession. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't know if this, he gestured between us, is healing or self-destruction. But I know I want to find out. Even if it breaks us both? Especially then. His grip tightened. Because at least that would mean I felt something real again. We sat like that as the city breathed below us, hands joined, two people caught between past and present, revenge and redemption, holding on and letting go. My phone buzzed. Unwoo, *, enjoy your dinner. I hope you're not getting too attached. Tomorrow, I start telling Minjun the truth about his new favorite ghost, *. I deleted the message without responding. Minjun noticed my tension. Everything okay? Everything's fine. I squeezed his hand once, then released it. But I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. Stay. The word came out desperate. Just a little longer. We could watch something, talk more, or just... He trailed off. I don't want to be alone tonight. The vulnerability in his voice nearly broke my resolve. Minjun, if I stay, nothing has to happen. He stood, began clearing dishes. I just want you here, in the same space. Proof that I'm not completely alone in this. So I stayed. We moved inside as the temperature dropped, and somehow ended up on opposite ends of his couch with a movie neither of us watched playing in the background. Thank you, Minjun said after a while. For not running. For not treating me like I'm too broken to be around. You're not broken. I watched him instead of the screen. You're just carrying more weight than one person should have to bear. So are you. His observation was quiet. I can see it sometimes. Like you're holding on to something that's crushing you from the inside out. Everyone has their ghosts. Maybe. He shifted closer, closing the distance between us incrementally. But yours feel particularly heavy. Like they're not haunting you, they're wearing your skin. The accuracy of the metaphor stole my breath. Before I could respond, his head dropped onto my shoulder, exhaustion finally overwhelming propriety. Is this okay? He murmured, already half asleep. Yeah. I carefully, slowly, rested my cheek against his hair. This is okay. He relaxed completely, breathing evening out into sleep. And I sat there holding the man I'd died hating, feeling his warmth seep into spaces I'd thought were frozen beyond repair, wondering when exactly my revenge had started tasting like regret. Wake up! The voice cut through my dreamless sleep. I opened my eyes to find Minjun still pressed against me on the couch, but now morning light filtered through the windows, and Eunwoo stood in the doorway with a key in his hand and murder in his eyes. How domestic. His smile was a razor blade. Should I come back later, or would you prefer I stay for the show? Minjun jerked awake, disoriented. Eunwoo, what the hell? I still have a key, remember? Eunwoo moved into the apartment like he owned it. From when I used to spend nights here. When you still knew what you wanted. His gaze locked on me. Before you started replacing Jaemin with cheaper imitations. Get out. Minjun stood, positioning himself between us. You have no right. I have every right. Eunwoo pulled out his phone, fingers dancing across the screen. Especially when I've discovered something fascinating about your new favorite producer. My pulse spiked, but I kept my expression neutral. Whatever conspiracy theory you've concocted. It's not a theory. He turned the phone toward Minjun. It's a tattoo. The image on screen showed Jaemin's wrist, the constellation he'd gotten at 21, photographed at our wedding. And beside it, a security camera still from the label's parking garage, showing my exposed wrist in identical detail. Minjun's face went white. Impossible, he breathed. That's impossible. Jaemin is dead. I identified his body, You identified someone. Eunwoo's voice carried triumph. But maybe you were too guilty to look too closely. Too eager to bury your shame to question what you were actually burying. That's insane. But Minjun's eyes found mine, searching, desperate. Harin, tell him. Tell him this is insane. I stood slowly. Every option I'd prepared for this moment evaporated in the face of Minjun's breaking expression. Show him, Eunwoo demanded. Show him your wrist, Harin. Prove me wrong. The apartment went silent except for the city's distant hum. Minjun's breathing had gone shallow, his hands trembling at his sides. Harin. His voice cracked on my name. Please. I could run. Could maintain the lie. Could let Eunwoo be dismissed as a jealous ex spinning fantasies. Instead, I pushed up my sleeve. The constellation gleamed in morning light, Cassiopeia, the same 5 stars Jaemin had chosen because Minjun once said it reminded him of my smile. Unmistakable. Undeniable. Minjun staggered backward like I'd struck him. No. The word came out strangled. No, you can't be, he's dead. I watched them close his casket. I stood at his funeral and his legs gave out. He caught himself on the piano, keys crashing discordantly under his weight. Oh God, what have I done? You let me die. My voice came out cold, each word a small death. You chose him, I gestured at Eunwoo. Over me, over everything we built. And when I confronted you, when I begged you to explain why I wasn't enough, you told me you were tired of my weakness. I never, Minjun's face crumpled. I never said that. I never would have. You did. The memory surfaced, sharp and clear. That last night, you said loving me was exhausting, that I demanded too much emotional labor. That being with Eunwoo felt like breathing after drowning. Jesus Christ. Minjun pressed his palms against his eyes. I was drunk. Angry. I didn't mean. You meant every word. I moved closer, letting him see Jaemin's pain in my eyes. And I took those pills because I believed you. Because I thought if loving you was killing you, then removing myself was the kindest thing I could do. But you didn't die. Eunwoo's voice carried fascination rather than concern. Somehow my pathetic brother survived and came back wearing someone else's face. How deliciously dramatic. Shut up. Minjun's rage finally found its target. This is your fault. You seduced me, manipulated me, turned me into someone I hated. I gave you what you wanted. Eunwoo shot back. You were bored with Jaemin's gentleness. Restless with his unconditional love. I offered you passion and chaos, and you grabbed it with both hands. Because you made it impossible not to. Minjun lunged toward him, but I caught his arm, held him back. You were everywhere, at the label, at our apartment, always touching, always suggesting, always. Always giving you the excuse you needed. Eunwoo's smile was bitter. You wanted out of your marriage, but were too much of a coward to admit it. So I became your exit strategy. Don't blame me for playing the role you cast me in. The truth of it hung in the air like poison gas. You're right. Minjun's voice went dead. You're absolutely right. I wanted out. Wanted the chaos. Wanted to feel alive instead of content. He turned to me, and his eyes were destroyed. But Jaemin, I never wanted you dead. Even at my worst, even when I was choosing him over you, I never wanted you gone forever. Just gone enough that you didn't have to face what you'd done. I released his arm, stepped back. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. Jaemin died that night. The pills, the storm, the body they found, all real. I died hating you both. Then how? Does it matter? I laughed, and the sound was broken glass. The universe gave me another chance. Another body. Another identity. And I spent 5 years planning this moment. Planning how to make you feel exactly what I felt. And Minjun's question was barely audible. Did it work? Do you feel better now that I'm destroyed? The question cut deeper than any revenge I'd orchestrated. Because standing there watching Minjun crumble, watching 5 years of guilt finally find its target, I felt nothing like satisfaction. I felt like I was dying all over again. Before I could answer, Adana burst through the door breathless. Harin, don't. Whatever you're planning to say, don't. Little late for that. Eunwoo gestured at the wreckage of the scene. The ghost has already revealed himself. Now we just wait for the haunting to reach its conclusion. Adana ignored him, focused entirely on me. Dr. Park called. Said you'd stop taking your medication. Said you've been spiraling for weeks, and he's worried you're going to. Going to what? I turned on her. Finish what I started 5 years ago? Finally let Jaemin stay dead instead of wearing his corpse around like a costume. Yes. Her pragmatism cracked into raw emotion. Because that's what you're doing. You're not living, Harin. You're haunting. And these men, she gestured at Minjun and Eunwoo, they're not worth sacrificing your second chance. They took my first chance. But the words sounded hollow even to me. So take another one. Adana moved closer, voice gentle. Walk away. Build something new. Let Jaemin finally rest instead of puppeting his pain through another life. Minjun made a sound like he was being torn in half. You're talking about him like he's separate. Like Harin isn't. He's not. Dr. Park's voice came from the doorway. He must have followed Adana. The person standing here isn't Jaemin anymore. Trauma and time have reformed him into something new. The question is whether he wants to stay trapped in the past or finally move forward. How philosophical. Eunwoo's sarcasm was armor against the emotional chaos. But it doesn't change the facts. Jaemin faked his death, assumed a false identity, and has been systematically torturing his ex-husband for weeks. That's not moving forward. That's obsession. You're one to talk about obsession. I finally turned my full attention to my brother. You seduced Minjun out of jealousy. Because I had something you wanted. Because you spent your whole life in my shadow and finally found a way to eclipse me. That's not. Eunwoo's mask slipped. I loved him too. Maybe not the way you did, maybe not as purely, but I loved him. And you never even noticed because you were too busy being the perfect husband. I noticed everything. My voice dropped to something dangerous. I noticed how you looked at him. How you found excuses to touch him. How you lit up when I mentioned our arguments. I moved closer, watching him retreat for the first time. I noticed, and I tried to love you past your envy. Tried to believe my baby brother wasn't capable of destroying me. I didn't destroy you. But Eunwoo's voice wavered. You destroyed yourself by making your whole identity about being loved. By needing validation so desperately that losing it killed you. The accusation landed with devastating accuracy. You're right. I laughed, sharp and broken. I built my entire self-worth on being Minjun's husband. On being needed, wanted, cherished. And when that crumbled, I gestured at myself. So did I. Jaemin. Minjun's voice was wrecked. Please let me explain. Explain what? I whirled on him. Explain how the man who promised to love me forever got bored within 3 years? Explain how my gentleness became weakness in your eyes? Explain how loving me turned into a chore you resented? Yes. He moved toward me, hands outstretched. Yes, I'll explain all of it. Every terrible thought, every moment of weakness, every choice that led us here. I'll spend the rest of my life explaining if that's what you need. What I need, my voice broke, is for you to have loved me enough not to betray me in the first place. The silence that followed was absolute. I did love you. Tears tracked down Minjun's face. I loved you so much it terrified me. You were everything good and kind, and I felt like I was poisoning you just by existing next to you. So I sabotaged us. Chose the chaos with Unwoo because at least destroying something ugly felt more natural than tainting something beautiful. That's the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard. But the words came out weak, making my pain about your self-hatred. I know. He dropped to his knees, actually knelt on the hardwood floor of the apartment we'd once shared, looking up at me with something beyond desperation. I know it's selfish. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But Jaemin, Harin, whoever you are now, please. Please don't let the worst thing I ever did be the last thing you remember about us. Get up. I couldn't watch him kneel. You don't get to perform penance. You don't get to make this about your redemption. Then what do you want? He stayed down, refusing the easy out. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. Walk away and never contact you again? Sell the label. Destroy my own career the way I destroyed yours? Name it. The question I'd been waiting 5 years to hear. The moment where I could demand any price, exact any revenge, make him suffer in proportion to my pain. And I had no answer. Because standing there looking at Minjun's destroyed face, at Unwoo's fractured armor, at Adana's worried expression, and Dr. Park's clinical concern, I realized the revenge had already happened. Not in this confrontation, but in every moment I'd spent the last 5 years consumed by hatred instead of healing. In every relationship I'd avoided. In every piece of music I'd produced instead of composed. In every morning I'd woken up as Harin and wished I could remember how to be Jaemin. My voice caught. I want to have died that night. I want this second chance to have gone to someone who'd use it better. I want to stop carrying Jaemin's pain like a trophy and Minjun's ghost like a weapon. Then let me help you. Minjun stood slowly. Let me spend whatever time you'll give me helping you heal instead of haunting. Not for my sake, for yours. You think you can fix this? I gestured at the wreckage between us. 5 years of planning, weeks of manipulation. And you think one conversation fixes it? No. He moved closer, stopping just out of reach. But maybe it starts something. Maybe it's the first conversation of hundreds. Maybe it's the beginning of both of us learning how to be human again, instead of just guilty. And what about me? Unwoo's voice cut through the moment. Do I get redemption too, or am I just the villain in your tragic romance? I turned to my brother, the baby I'd raised when our parents worked 3 jobs, the talent I'd nurtured through music school, the betrayal that killed me. You get the truth, I said quietly. That I loved you more than I loved myself. That I would have forgiven you if you'd just asked. That even now, even after everything, part of me still sees the 10-year-old who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during piano practice. Unwoo's face crumpled. Don't make me the victim of your goodness. I don't deserve it. None of us deserve anything. Dr. Park finally spoke up. But we choose what to carry forward anyway. The question isn't whether you deserve forgiveness. It's whether you want to be defined by your worst moments or build something better from the ruins. The apartment fell silent, except for the city's eternal song beyond the windows. I need air. I moved toward the door, needing distance from the emotional wreckage. I need to think. Wait. Minjun reached for me but stopped himself. Will you come back? I don't know. Then can I? His voice broke. Can I ask one thing before you go? I paused at the threshold. That night you played the melody. In my studio. Did you do it to torture me or, he struggled for words, or were you trying to remind me what we'd lost? The question deserved honesty. Both, I whispered. I wanted you to suffer. But I also wanted you to remember that once, before everything turned ugly, we made something beautiful together. We did. Tears tracked down his face unchecked. God, Jaemin, we did. My name is Harin now. I forced the words out. Jaemin died 5 years ago. And I think, my voice caught. I think maybe he needs to stay dead. Not buried by grief, but released with grace. Then Harin. Minjun spoke my new name like a promise. Will Harin give me a chance to know him? Not as Jaemin's ghost, but as whoever you're becoming. The question hung in the morning light. I looked at Adana, who nodded encouragement. At Dr. Park, who watched with clinical hope. At Unwoo, who for the first time looked like my little brother instead of my destroyer. and at Minjun, who knelt in the ruins of everything we'd built and broken, offering nothing but presence and patience. Maybe, I said finally, maybe once I figure out who Harin is without the revenge, without the pain, without the need to make you suffer. I'll wait. Minjun's conviction was absolute. However long it takes. I'll wait. I walked out into the soul morning, leaving behind 3 people who'd shaped my deaths and might help shape my resurrection. My phone buzzed. A message from myself to myself, scheduled 5 years ago when I'd first planned this confrontation. Asterisk, did it feel good? Did the revenge taste sweet? Asterisk. I deleted it without answering, because the truth was that revenge tasted like nothing at all. Like ash and regret, and the ghost of love that refused to die cleanly. The city breathed around me. Millions of people choosing grace or cruelty, moving forward or staying trapped, building or destroying. I chose to walk. To feel sunlight on skin that had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. To breathe air that tasted like endings and maybe tentatively beginnings. Behind me, in an apartment full of shattered people, Minjun began to play the piano. The melody I'd composed 5 years ago, now transformed by grief into something new. Something that acknowledged the pain without being destroyed by it. I stopped walking, listened, and for the first time since dying, I felt something other than the need for revenge. I felt the possibility of peace. Whether I'd choose it or not remained a question only time could answer. But standing there in the morning light, hearing my old song made new, I thought maybe, Jamin could rest now. And Harin could finally learn to live. Piano melody continues as camera pulls back, showing Seoul's morning skyline, the city moving forward whether we heal or not.